Alright, we are back here in DCS World. We are getting ready to jump back into the cockpit of the Viper. Continue our training, our learning the hardest airplane simulator in, let's just say combat airplane simulator. I'm sure learning how to fly a 737 or a A380 or something like that is pretty damn difficult. So we're going to do what we did yesterday. We're going to start at the beginning and work our way back up. Make sure that we got everything we need to know. Wow, that's a weird... Okay, that's not cool. What's going on now?
Welcome to this training lesson on starting up the Viper. In some missions, you will find yourself in a cold and dark Viper that you'll need to bring to life. While this can be a rather long process described in the manual, you can also enable the auto start function. However, for this lesson, we'll review the full startup procedure. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started.
I set some cameras earlier, so I'm just trying to make sure that they're all working.
As we go, remember a right click generally positions the switch up, while a left click positions the switch down. First, position the main power switch to battery with a click of the right mouse button. This connects the aircraft's battery to essential systems and provides power needed for engine ignition. Just below the switch on the same panel, verify the amber FLICUS relay light is illuminated. This is a check that the flight control computer's fault monitoring system is operating. Press spacebar to continue. Now, position the FLICUS power test switch to the test position and hold it in place with the right mouse button. The 4 FLICUS power lights next to the switch should illuminate. Returning to the electrical panel, the FLICUS relay lights we're just looking at should turn off, and the TO FLICUS and FLICUS PMG lights should be on. This test verifies operation of the flight control computer with aircraft battery as the power source. Release the switch and press spacebar to continue. Next, position the main power switch to main power. This prepares the aircraft to run off the engine-mounted generator, but electrical power is not available until the engine is up and running. For that reason, the engine and hydraulic oil pressure warning lights on the right eyebrow and electrical system and secondary caution lights on the caution panel should be illuminated. Press spacebar to continue. On the EPU panel that is just outboard of the main power switch, you'll want to verify the EPU generator and EPU PMG lights are off. Illumination of either indicates criteria for EPU activation are met. The EPU could activate and create hazardous conditions if the EPU safety pin is removed by the ground crew. Turn the main power switch to off and abort the aircraft if the lights are on, although this is highly unlikely as you have gone terribly astray in the procedure already. Press spacebar to continue. Now, let's close the canopy in preparation for engine start. This can be delayed until taxi if you wish, but we'll close it now to cut down on noise. Use keyboard command left Control C to close the canopy. When it's fully closed, click the yellow canopy handle to lock it in place. Verify the canopy warning light on the right eyebrow goes out. Press spacebar to continue. Now it's time to get the engine up and running. This can go quickly, so feel free to restart the mission at any point if there's something you want to watch more closely. First, position the JFS switch to start 2 with a left click. That just expended both jet fuel starter JFS accumulator bottles and began to spool up the JFS. This also closed the FLICUS relays and applied power to the FLICUS. The JFS run light should come on when it's up to speed, and engine RPM should start to increase. Now, let's monitor the engine instruments. At 20% RPM, advance the throttle to idle position, right shift, and home. This provides power to the engine igniters and starts fuel flow. You should note airframe vibration and an increase in the fan turbine engine inlet temperature as RPM increases. Monitor those on the right side of the instrument panel as the engine start cycle continues. The secondary caution light goes out at 20% RPM and the JFS automatically shuts off at 55%. The JFS light should go out and the JFS switch should return to the off position automatically. At 60% RPM, the standby generator comes online and the engine warning light goes out. A few seconds later, the main generator comes online and the standby generator goes offline. All aircraft systems are now running off electricity from the generator and are ready to be powered up.
So note to self, if you accidentally hit the wrong JCL, it will go off. And it'll say that it's heating up, but it won't be. The engine will never do the engine thing.
Welcome to this training lesson on starting up the Viper. In some missions, you will find yourself in a cold and dark Viper that you'll need to bring to life. While this can be a rather long process described in the manual, you can also enable the auto start function. However, for this lesson, we'll review the full startup procedure. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started. As we go, remember a right click generally positions the switch up, while a left click positions the switch down. First, position the main power switch to battery with a click of the right mouse button. This connects the aircraft's battery to essential systems and provides power needed for engine ignition. Just below the switch on the same panel, verify the amber FLICUS relay light is illuminated. This is a check that the flight control computer's fault monitoring system is operating. Press spacebar to continue. Now, position the FLICUS power test switch to the test position and hold it in place with the right mouse button. The 4 FLICUS power lights next to the switch should illuminate. Returning to the electrical panel, the FLICUS relay lights we're just looking at should turn off, and the TO FLICUS and FLICUS PMG lights should be on. This test verifies operation of flight control computer with aircraft battery as the power source. Release the switch and press spacebar to continue. Next, position the main power switch to main power. This prepares the aircraft to run off the engine-mounted generator, but electrical power is not available until the engine is up and running. For that reason, the engine and hydraulic oil pressure warning lights on the right eyebrow and electrical system and secondary caution lights on the caution panel should be illuminated. Press spacebar to continue. On the EPU panel that is just outboard of the main power switch, you'll want to verify the EPU generator and EPU PMG lights are off. Illumination of either indicates criteria for EPU activation are met. The EPU could activate and create hazardous conditions if the EPU safety pin is removed by the ground crew. Turn the main power switch to off and abort the aircraft if the lights are on, although this is highly unlikely as you have gone terribly astray in the procedure already. Press spacebar to continue. Now, let's close the canopy in preparation for engine start. This can be delayed until taxi if you wish, but we'll close it now to cut down on noise. Use keyboard command left Control C to close the canopy. When it's fully closed, click the yellow canopy handle to lock it in place. Verify the canopy warning light on the right eyebrow goes out. Press spacebar to continue. Now it's time to get the engine up and running. This can go quickly, so feel free to restart the mission at any point if there's something you want to watch more closely. First, position the JFS switch to start 2 with a left click. That just expended both jet fuel starter JFS accumulator bottles and began to spool up the JFS. This also closed the FLICUS relays and applied power to the FLICUS. The JFS run light should come on when it's up to speed and engine RPM should start to increase. Now let's monitor the engine instruments. At 20% RPM, advance the throttle to idle position, right shift, and home. This provides power to the engine igniters and starts fuel flow. You should note airframe vibration and an increase in the fan turbine engine inlet temperature as RPM increases. Monitor those on the right side of the instrument panel as the engine start cycle continues. The secondary caution light goes out at 20% RPM and the JFS automatically shuts off at 55%. The JFS light should go out and the JFS switch should return to the off position automatically. At 60% RPM, the standby generator comes online and the engine warning light goes out. A few seconds later, the main generator comes online and the standby generator goes offline. All aircraft systems are now running off electricity from the generator and are ready to be powered up. Normal indications after engine start are hydraulic and oil warning lights off, fuel flow between 700 and 1700 pounds per hour, oil pressure 15 psi minimum, nozzle position greater than 94%, RPM 62 to 80%, F-tip 650C or less, and hydraulic pressure for A and B between 2850 and 3250 psi. Verify those on the instrument panel and press spacebar to continue. Now that power is provided by the generator, we have 3 quick tests to run on the master test panel. Position the probe heat switch to probe heat. Verify the probe heat caution light on the caution light panel is off. Illumination means one or more probe heaters are inoperative or failure of the monitoring system has occurred. Now, position the probe heat switch to test. The probe heat caution light should flash 3 to 5 times per second. The probe heat monitoring system is inoperative if this does not occur. Return the probe heat switch to the off position. Press spacebar to continue. Next, depress the fire and overheat detect button. Verify that the engine fire warning light and the overheat caution light are illuminated when the button is pushed. This checks for continuity of the fire and overheat detection loops. Press spacebar to continue. Then, depress the malfunction indicator lights button. All cockpit warning, caution, and indicator lights should illuminate when the button is depressed. Voice message system audio alerts should play in priority sequence. A brief landing gear warning horn should be heard prior to the warning and caution words. Press spacebar to continue. Now it's time to get our systems up and running and start the INS alignment. This is far easier than it sounds. First, turn on all the switches on the avionics power panel. Each switch in sequence provides power to the modular mission computer or MMC, power to the store stations or ST/STA, power to the 2 MFDs, power to the upfront controls or UFC, power to the GPS receiver, and power to the data link or DL. There's also a map power switch, but this is not used in the Block 50 Viper. Press spacebar to continue. Next, position the EGI INS knob to align. This begins alignment of the EGI INS ring laser gyro navigation system. A normal alignment takes approximately 4 minutes to accomplish if the aircraft remains stationary. The knob should be set to nav prior to taxi. Press spacebar to continue. While the INS is busy aligning, we'll complete the rest of the cockpit setup and checks. First, set the CNI knob to the UFC position. This enables control of the primary communications, navigation, and identification functions from the upfront controls. Check that all 3 wheels down lights are illuminated green. This confirms that the landing gear is down and locked, and the micro switches that sense their position are working properly. While you're there, cycle the speed brakes open, left shift B, and back closed, left control B, using the switch on the throttle. Confirm this visually and monitor the speed brake indicator. Press spacebar to continue. Next, uncage the standby ADI on the instrument panel. This can be done by rotating the knob until the aircraft symbol is aligned with the horizon. Press spacebar to continue. On the sensor power panel, turn on these 3 switches. Right hardpoint switch, on if the targeting pod is installed, FCR switch to FCR, radar altimeter switch to radar altimeter. Radar and radar altimeter transmissions are inhibited until the aircraft becomes airborne, but activation of these systems may be delayed until just before takeoff. Press spacebar to continue. Now we're down to a series of checks that may be run to verify proper operation of the aircraft systems. We will start with the check of the engine operation in the secondary engine control mode. This mode is selected in the case of a failure of the engine-mounted digital computer that controls scheduling of the engine fuel flow. First, raise the switch guard and position the engine control switch to SEC. Verify the SEC caution light is on and engine RPM is stabilized. RPM may drop up to 10% from the PRI value before stabilizing. Stabilized SEC idle RPM may be up to 5% lower than in PRI. Press spacebar to continue. Now hold down the wheel brake to the next part so your aircraft does not move. Snap the throttle to mill and then back to idle when engine RPM reaches 85%. Check for normal indications in smooth operation. The nozzle position should be 5% or less within 30 seconds after selecting SEC. Press spacebar to continue. Now, set the engine control switch back to pry and lower the switch guard. Check the sec light goes out and nozzle position returns to greater than 94%. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we'll run a check of the Flickus. Start by cycling all your flight controls. Maximum stick inputs warm hydraulic fluid and remove air bubbles, making test failures less likely. Then, position the Flickus bit switch to bit. The run light on the flight control panel illuminates. After a successful completion of the bit, approximately 45 seconds later, the run light goes off, the bit switch returns to off, and the fail light and the Flickus warning light remains off. A bit pass message appears on the Flickus MFD page. Other tasks may be completed while the Flickus bit runs. Press spacebar to continue. Now we'll test a fuel quantity indicating system. We will do this by checking the state of the fuel quantity indicator with the fuel quantity knob in the different positions. Start by positioning the fuel quantity knob to test. On the fuel quantity indicator, the FRAL pointer should indicate 2,000 plus or minus 100 pounds, and totalizer should indicate 6,000 plus or minus 100 pounds. The forward and aft low fuel caution lights should illuminate. The quantity readouts in the other positions should match the aircraft's actual fuel load. After the check is complete, set the fuel quantity knob back to the norm. Press spacebar to continue. Next, let's check the operation of the digital backup software. It is used if problems arise with the primary Flickus software. First, position the digital backup switch to backup. Verify that DBU on warning light illuminates and operate your controls. All surfaces should respond normally. Next, return the digital backup switch to off. Verify the DBU on warning light goes off. Press spacebar to continue. Now we'll verify that the trim system is functioning correctly. Set trim autopilot disconnect switch to disconnect. Use the trim head on your stick to trim at both pitch and roll. There should be no control surface motion and no movement on the trim wheels or indicators. Press spacebar to continue. Return the trim AP disconnect switch to the norm position. Again, use your trim head on the stick to trim in both pitch and roll. The control surface and trim indicators should move. Center the trim for pitch and roll and use the yaw trim knob to check the center trim for yaw. Press spacebar to continue. Next is the check if the manual pitch override system is working correctly. Start by pushing the stick full forward and holding that position. The horizontal tail should deflect down. Then, position the MPO switch to override and hold. Confirm that horizontal tail trailing edges move further down. Release the stick and MPO switch and confirm that the horizontal tail returns to its original position. Press spacebar to continue. The last check is of the emergency power unit. This check verifies EPU electrical power is available in case of an emergency. It may be delayed until just before takeoff if desired. First, check EPU fuel quantity to reach 95 to 102%. Next, set oxygen to 100%. Then, holding down the brake, increase engine RPM to 10% above normal idle. Press spacebar to continue. Set the EPU generator test switch to EPU generator and hold it in position. Check the following lights: EPU air light on, EPU generator and EPU PMG lights off, Flickus power lights on, EPU run light on for a minimum of 5 seconds. Press spacebar to continue. Return the EPU generator test switch to the off position. Return the throttle to idle and set oxygen back to normal. Press spacebar to continue. That's it. You're ready to taxi as soon as your INS alignment is complete and you position the EGI INS knob to nav. Use the time on the ground to set up your avionics systems for the assigned mission. Things to consider include SMS page and profiles, radio channels and frequencies, navigation data, bingo fuel settings, ALO settings, and any other systems applicable to the mission. We will pick up again at this point in the lesson that covers taxi and takeoff. You may use the escape key to exit the mission now or continue to explore the aircraft on your own.
Awesome. Love it when we get done with the lesson. I wonder why my screen is like that. Let me fix that. Okay. Let's try this way. That looks better.
Magic 1-1 on station at bullseye 17948 at 24,000.
Welcome to the M120 track while scan and link training. You are at 12,000 feet MSL over the coast of the Black Sea, approximately 2 nautical miles east of the bullseye. The first step will be to set up your aircraft for air-to-air combat. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. To set your F-16 for air-to-air combat, first ensure master on. When you do so, note that the right MFD should change to the SMS page showing the AIM-120 missiles are selected. Using the right MFD, OSB-7, you can switch between the 4 wing-mounted AIM-120B and 2 wingtip-mounted AIM-120C. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. On the left MFD, change the radar mode to track while scan using OSB-2. Next, reduce the scan azimuth sweep to 30 using OSB-17. When you do so, you should notice 2 radar targets. They will start as search targets, small solid boxes, that should turn into track targets, large solid boxes. Once this occurs, press the spacebar to continue. As you fly towards the targets, press TMS-R, HOTAS stick TMS right. This will change both tracks to system tracks, large empty boxes. System tracks will be used to guide the AIM-120s after launch. Use TMS-R again to bug the closest target. This will select it for an AIM-120 shot. As the bug target enters max fly-out range, shoot the missile.
Uh-oh. We're gonna have to watch a video about that. And I don't know if I can watch a video on YouTube on my... Hey Siri, can I watch a YouTube video on my Twitch channel while streaming? So we're going to watch a video on how to do this, but on how to use AIM-120 with TrackWell scan. I'll watch a video on that. And maybe you'll watch that too. TrackWell scan, F-16, AIM-120. How to video DCS. I don't want an image. I don't want that either. I want AI. Nope. Damn it. All right. Solid red triangles. TMS right. TMS right and left. I need to okay, select mode and ICP, master mode on, select AIM-120s, radar mode, set FCR, fire control to track my scan. I did that. Targeting, identify targets, solid red triangles, use TMS right short to cycle, and bug designated target, TMS. So we're going to have to set that. we can try, I guess.
Magic 1-1 on station at Bulls 179 for 8 at 24,000.
Welcome to the AIM-120 track wall scan and link training. You are at 12,000 feet MSL over the coast of the Black Sea, approximately 2 nautical miles east of the bullseye. The first step will be to set up your aircraft for air-to-air combat. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. When you do so, note that the right MFD should change to the SMS page showing the AIM-1. On the left MFD, change the radar mode to track while scan using OSB-2. Next, reduce the scan azimuth sweep to 30. When you do so, you should notice 2 radar targets. They will start as search targets, small solid boxes, that should turn into track targets, large solid boxes. Once this occurs, press the spacebar to continue. As you fly towards the targets, press TMS-R, HOTAS stick TMS right. This will change both tracks to system tracks, large empty boxes. System tracks will be used to guide the AIM-120s after launch. Use TMS-R again to bug the closest target. This will select it for an AIM-120 shot. As the bug target enters max fly-out range, shoot the missile. Fox 3. Quickly press the TMS-R again to select the next target. Shoot another AIM-120 at the second target. Fox 3. Fox 3.
Tally Bandit, 12 o'clock.
Splash the target. Good kill. Well done. Reset the radar search to 80 nautical miles using OSB. This will be a link-enabled engagement. On the right console, check that the MIDS LVT switch is on. Next, using the right MFD, OSB 13, set the right MFD to the HSD page. Magic 1-1 and E3 AWACS is on station and providing a link picture. Finally, increase HSD range to 120. The next steps will start slow, but the pace will rapidly increase. Review the following.
Okay, you guys don't want to watch that, so we'll do that some other time. Okay.
Welcome to the Viper ACM and helmet mounted queuing system training. You are at 2,500 feet MSL over hilly terrain, 11 nautical miles from Gudada Air Base. Two Su-25, just behind the ridge at your 1 o'clock and 10 kilometers, are heading to attack Gudada. They are your first targets. The first step will be to set up your aircraft for air combat maneuvering. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. To set up your F-16C for ACM, first ensure Master Arm on. When you do so, note that the right MFD on the left MFD change the radar mode from CRM to ACM, then pressing OSB 19. When you do so, you will notice the radar has gone silent and no rad has appeared on the HUD. The next step will be to set the radar to foresight mode by pressing OSB 2 3 times. Things will happen fast. However, the overall procedure is fairly simple. The radar will automatically lock a bore-sighted target. Uncage the AIM-9. Seeker lock, high-pitched growl, shoot. If it is not the target you want, then simply point your nose at another target and select bore sight again, TMS up. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
Altitude.
Fox 2. Did I forget to mention the targets are using flare countermeasures? 2. Fox 2.
All right. I can fire that one. I have to practice that later. We've done this on a Hornet, so we should be able to figure this out on this, but we'll see.
Today we're going to start dropping some unguided bombs. These can be delivered in several different modes, but in this lesson we'll look at the Continuously Computed Impact Point, or CCIP bombing. We'll also look at the Stores Management Set, or SMS page on the MFDs, and cover items there that apply to all bombing modes. We have 3 BDU-33 unguided training bombs loaded on turrets on Station 3 and 7, for a total of 6. These replicate the ballistics of a Mark 82 and are equipped with a spotting chart so you can see their impact point on the ground. I have the lesson paused, ready to roll in on targets to our left. First though, let's set the aircraft up for the attack. Press spacebar to continue. First, press the air-to-ground master mode button on the ICP. This configures the fire control system and displays for air-to-ground attack. The radar is displayed on the left MFD and the SMS page is displayed on the right MFD. Next, verify the master arm switch is in the arm position. This allows weapons to be released normally. If the master arm switch is placed in the off position, weapons release is inhibited. The third, simulate position, allows training with all indications you get with the switch in arm, but no weapons are released. Now let's look at the right MFD and the SMS page. The top left shows the operating mode, air to ground, and sub-mode, CCIP. The sub-mode may be changed by depressing the adjacent OSB and selecting a new sub-mode from the menu. You may also depress the missile step button on your stick to cycle through available modes. Try it now if you would like, but set it back to CCIP for the remainder of the lesson. Press spacebar to continue. The right side of the display shows the selected weapons and details about how they'll be released. You can see that we have 6 BDU-33s loaded. If other air-to-ground weapons were loaded, they could be selected by depressing the adjacent OSB until their source code were displayed. Just below that, we have the weapons release profile, with Profile 1 selected by default. Selecting the adjacent OSB cycles between two options, Profile 1 and Profile 2. These include typical settings for delivery mode, fuse arming option, release pulses, impact spacing, and release interval. Changes to settings made while a profile is selected are saved there for later use. These should typically be set or verified as part of aircraft startup, although they can be changed at any time. We'll work with Profile 1 that's already set up for a CCIP delivery. Press spacebar to continue. The next 3 options will make more sense taken out of order, so let's start at the bottom with the release pulse, or RP setting. This sets the number of release pulses sent to the weapon stations when the weapons release button on the stick is depressed. For example, a setting of 1 sends 1 pulse at a time, while a setting of 4 sends 4 pulses at a time. More than 1 pulse is known as a ripple or release. To change the setting, depress the OSB, type in the desired number of release pulses using the OSBs on the left and right of the display, then select Enter. You can correct numbers entered in error by selecting Recall, or return to the SMS page without making any changes by selecting Return. For now, leave this set to 1 so we release one bomb at a time. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we can set the desired release interval if more than one bomb is to be released. The timing between release pulses is computed by the aircraft to space multiple weapons in a stick along the ground at the specified distance, ranging from 10 to 999 feet. Again, this is changed by selecting the OSB, typing in the new impact spacing distance using the OSBs on the left and right of the display, then selecting Enter. This setting has no effect if only one bomb or one pair of bombs is released, so let's leave it at the default of 10 feet. Press spacebar to continue. Then above that, we have the option to release bombs either singly or in pairs. With single selected, bombs will be released from only one station. With pair selected, bombs will be released symmetrically from opposite stations, assuming identical bombs are loaded on both sides. The number of release pulses is also shown next to the single pair option, although that's informational. It was already set with the RP OSB below. For this lesson, let's leave it set to single and release one bomb from one side at a time. Press spacebar to continue. Then on the left side, we have the bomb fusing option. This setting makes sense when you consider that bombs are usually equipped with two fuses, one in the nose and one in the tail. Selecting the adjacent OSB cycles between three options: nose, tail, and nose-tail. This is typically set to nose-tail for redundancy unless a specific effect unique to one fuse or the other is desired when the weapon detonates. There are also some special cases where the fuse option changes how the weapon behaves after release. For example, setting nose for a Mark 82 Air or Snake Eye high drag bomb releases it in a low drag configuration, while setting tail or nose tail releases it in a high drag configuration. And similarly, setting nose for a CU-87 or 97 causes bomblets to dispense very shortly after release, while selecting nose tail uses the dispense settings displayed on the MFD. This will all make more sense once we get into some different weapons configurations and see exactly what this does. Let's leave it set to nose tail for now. Press spacebar to continue. Well, that covers the SMS MFD options typical for all unguided bombs. So now let's look at some unique elements of the HUD that apply to CCIP bombing. Running from the bottom of the flight path marker is the bomb fall line. This will be used as an alignment aid to stay lined up with the target when we're making our bombing run. Then at the bottom of the line is the CCIP pipper. This is the computed bomb impact point. The CCIP bombing mode can be described as simply putting the pipper on the target and pressing the weapon's release button on the stick. But of course the hard part is developing the techniques required to consistently get into the correct position to make that happen. Press spacebar to continue. Now moving back up the bomb fall line, you'll see a small horizontal bar. This is the time delay cue. It's visible whenever the CCIP pipper is outside the HUD field of view. The distance this bar is from the bottom of the HUD is the same distance the CCIP pipper is below the HUD. So as you dive, the cue will drop down the bomb fall line until it reaches the bottom of the HUD, and that's when the CCIP pipper appears. A second post-designate CCIP technique may be used when the pipper is still outside the HUD, but that will be covered briefly in the next lesson. Press spacebar to continue. Not shown yet, but very important, is the pull-up anticipation cue. This is a staple-shaped symbol that provides a visual representation of the altitude required for the bomb fuse to arm, or the altitude to initiate a pull-up to avoid impacting the ground, whichever is most immediate. It moves up towards the flight path marker as the aircraft loses altitude. Releasing a bomb with the flight path marker below the cue will not give the bomb time to arm and will result in a dud. Watch for it as we make our attack, but it should not be encountered in this lesson unless you're much too low. Press spacebar to continue. Now that we've covered the basics, it's time to roll in on the target. Look about 45 degrees to the left, just above the canopy rail, and you'll see the target marked with red smoke. The goal is to place the CCIP pipper on that spot and pickle off your bomb by pressing the weapon's release button on your stick. Now, this is a deep subject, and there are many techniques for getting to the proper point, but I'll describe one way of doing it that you may find useful. Press spacebar to continue. I just marked a point 2,000 feet in front of the target with green smoke. We'll call that the aim-off distance. When the lesson is unpaused, I want you to bank left and pull the flight path marker to a spot on the ground that far ahead of the target. The aim-off distance you choose sets the conditions at release, so this is the most important step to get right. Close to the target results in a steeper dive, lower release altitude, and more time to track the target, while choosing the point farther away shallows out the dive, increases the release altitude, but provides less tracking time. I've chosen a relatively close point of 2,000 feet to give us plenty of time to track the target on the way down, but there's no hard and fast rule here. When the flight path marker is at the aim-off distance, leave it there and focus on the bomb fall line. Align the bomb fall line with the target and make small bank corrections with the stick to keep it there. Then, the CCIP Pipper tracks up the bomb fall line towards the target. You never want to fly the Pipper to the target or hold it on the target using forward stick. Wait for the Pipper to intersect the target naturally and release the bomb. After release, you'll fly a safe escape maneuver to avoid the bomb fragmentation. Now, there are many options, but you can't go wrong with a 5G pull-up to a 30-degree climb. Now press spacebar when you're ready to unpause and give it a shot. I'll talk you through it as we go. Okay, bank left and pull the flight path marker down to the aim-off distance. Now align the bomb fall line with the target. Here's the smoothest control inputs you can manage. The CCIP Pipper should be tracking up the bomb fall line to the target. Pickle when it's over the target. Okay, weapon away. Pull up to a 30-degree climb to avoid the frag. Worry about looking for threats, not following the bomb. Okay, let's see how we did. Look for the white smoke that marks the BDU-33's impact point. Don't worry if it's a little off. You have 5 more loaded and more targets to practice on. When you're done, press escape to end the lesson.
I have to practice again. I keep going until we destroy a bunch. We'll say some. Excuse me.
Today, we're going to start dropping some unguided bombs. These can be delivered in several different modes, but in this lesson, we'll look at the continuous.
If we're going to do it, we'll practice it without doing it here, because I don't want to. Practice that again. Pulled way too hard, way too fast. Let's watch the replay. Try it again.
Altitude. Altitude. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Sir,